Antonio sits stone still. His face shows nothing. He grips the glass. Ice rattles softly. Across the room, Elena stops moving. She hears the click of the main door lock. She glances at the exit. Panic flickers. Antonio leans forward slightly. He does not raise his voice. Antonio, lock the doors. Don't let her leave. Elena freezes completely. Her heart pounds hard. She knows that voice. And that order. It is the most dangerous sound in the city. She looks down at her hands. The phone is still warm. The call just ended. The secret is out. She realizes, he understood everything. 5 minutes earlier. Elena balanced 3 plates. She moved fast. The Milanese restaurant was packed tight. This was her 3rd job. She needed the cash. Elena is not Italian. She is American. She fled Chicago 4 months ago. Her past followed her anyway. She works here as a waitress. Mostly translating menus. Her life is simple, survive and stay invisible. She avoids eye contact with every client. Especially the client in the corner booth. Antonio Bellandi. The man who owns the city. He owns the shadows and the silence. Antonio watched the room. Always watching. He was eating alone. Just a formality. Then, her phone vibrated violently. Elena cursed under her breath. Big mistake. She retreated to the small service hall. It was a code red call. She had to answer. Elena, pronto? Parla piano. She spoke too quickly. Too sharp. Her Italian was flawless. Not a local dialect. It was the formal, old-world cadence. A rare accent. The kind used in specific families. She listened hard to the frantic voice. Voice, os la valigia e sparita. E finita. The briefcase is gone. It is over. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Elena, no. Non può essere. No. It cannot be. She clutched the phone tightly. Her knuckles white. Voice, os dillo a Marco. Devi sparire ora. Tell Marco. You must disappear now. Elena whispered one final word. Elena, capito. Understood. She ended the call abruptly. She was shaking. Time, 2:15, the briefcase was the leverage. It was her only insurance. Without it, she had zero protection. She stepped back into the dining room. She had to get out now. Tonight. Time, 2:45, Antonio had not looked up. He looked bored. But he heard every syllable. He recognized the specific dialect immediately. It was the dialect of the Bellandi rivals. The old guard. A dialect only used within their most trusted circle. And this simple waitress just spoke it perfectly. Her accent was not learned. It was inherited. Antonio signaled his lieutenant. A sharp nod. The massive man, Luca, was by the main doors. Luca barely moved. He pressed the hidden button. The electronic lock engaged with a silent thud. Elena moved toward the cloakroom. A nervous energy surged. She needed her coat. Her keys. Her passport. She saw Luca standing by the exit. Too still. Luca did not usually guard the doors. His presence felt like a heavy stone. Elena forced a weak smile. She kept walking. Elena, scusi. Just getting a jacket. Luca blocked her path slightly. His eyes were cold. Luca, the temperature dropped. Better stay warm inside. His tone was a warning. A threat. She turned sharply toward the back exit. The kitchen staff used it for smoke breaks. She pulled the handle hard. It did not budge. Locked. She looked back at Luca. He was smiling faintly. Antonio's gaze met hers from across the room. His eyes were intense, deep, and knowing. He knew she tried the door. He knew she was panicking. Antonio picked up his phone slowly. He did not dial. He held it to his ear. A silent conversation began. Antonio, low, commanding Luca. The staff exit. Lock it now. Luca nodded once. He did not move from the main door. He just texted another man, Mario, hidden in the kitchen prep area. Mario moved to the secondary door. A loud clunk. Now both exits were sealed completely. Elena felt trapped. The air grew thin. She gripped a napkin dispenser. Her only weapon. Elena's mind raced. Why me? Why now? That phone call was about a stolen item. Not her. But the item belonged to a very specific person. A person Antonio wanted very badly. Antonio raised his hand. He signaled the waiters. Antonio, the evening is over. Send everyone home. The waiters were confused. It was only 9 p.m. They quickly ushered the remaining patrons out the service door. The patrons complained. Antonio ignored them. Elena realized she was alone. Completely exposed. Only Antonio, Luca, and Mario remained. She bolted for the bar. High shelves offered weak cover. Luca laughed softly. A dry, chilling sound. Luca, where do you think you are running, little bird? Elena ignored him. She grabbed a bottle of expensive Merlot. She smashed it hard on the marble counter edge. The glass shattered, creating a jagged, deadly shard. Elena pointed the broken bottle toward Luca. Elena, stay back. I swear I will use this. Luca took a slow step forward. Unfazed. Luca, you won't. Elena, try me. Her voice trembled but held firm. Antonio rose from his seat. Slowly. Elegantly. He pushed his chair in precisely. No wasted motion. He was not hurried. He had all the time in the world. His shadow stretched across the now empty dining room. The tension was thick and electric. Antonio looked directly at the glass shard. Antonio, that is expensive wine, signorina. He walked around the table. Unflinching. He moved like a predator. Calm and powerful. He addressed his guard. Antonio, she speaks the language of betrayal, Luca. He turned his attention back to Elena. Antonio, but her accent, it is my mother's accent. This statement stunned Elena. Her hand faltered slightly. This was more than a stolen item. It was personal. Antonio took his final, deliberate steps across the marble floor. Each footfall echoed loudly in the silence. Elena gripped the glass shard tighter. Her eyes wide. He stopped just 3 feet from the bar counter. He looked not at the weapon, but into her soul. Antonio, tell me your name. Elena kept her mouth shut. She would not speak. He waited patiently. His curiosity was palpable. He did not look like an enraged boss. He looked like a man solving a deep mystery. He pointed to the glass in her hand. Antonio, drop the weapon. We need to talk about Marco. He had named the man mentioned on the call. Elena's eyes went wide with pure shock. He knew everything. Antonio leaned in over the bar counter, his voice a smooth, low rumble of absolute control. Antonio, before you disappear forever, I need to know one thing. He paused. His dark eyes drilled into hers. Antonio, who are you protecting? Elena did not drop the glass. The shard still gleamed. She held her breath. Her eyes never left his face. Elena, who is Marco to you? Antonio chuckled softly. It was a dangerous sound. Antonio, I ask the questions here, little bird. He reached across the bar. He slowly pushed the shards away. He ignored the danger completely. Pure arrogance. Antonio, tell me your name. The real one. Elena hesitated. She needed a shield. Elena, my name is irrelevant now. Antonio, everything is relevant to me. He pulled a small flask from his tailored jacket. He unscrewed the top. The scent of strong liquor filled the air. Antonio, do you know this brand? Aged in oak. Elena frowned slightly. This was a test. Elena, it is an imitation, Antonio. She used his name deliberately. An act of defiance. Antonio's eyes narrowed. Luca shifted behind him. Antonio, imitation of what? Elena, of a true Barolo. You are drinking a fake. She pointed at the label. Her hand steady now. Elena, the stamp is wrong. The cork is plastic. Antonio looked at the flask. He looked genuinely surprised. He passed the flask to Luca. Luca inspected it. Luca, boss, she is right. It is counterfeit. Antonio felt the sting. Not the truth, but the exposure. He had been caught drinking cheap poison. In front of his men. A loss of face. Antonio's voice dropped to a cold whisper. Antonio, who taught you about Barolo? Elena shrugged, feigning boredom. Elena, my father liked quality. He taught me to spot a lie. Antonio's jaw tightened. This woman was sharp. Antonio, your father. Was he a waiter too? Elena met his challenge. Her voice was pure steel. Elena, he was a sommelier. You should know the difference. Luca snickered, then quickly stifled the noise. Antonio shot Luca a deadly look. Luca went rigid. The balance shifted. Elena had won the first round. Antonio moved closer. He rested his hands on the counter. Antonio, a sommelier. Where did he work, this father? Elena, Chicago. Before we moved to Rome. She lied smoothly about Rome. A strategic misdirection. Antonio shook his head slowly. Antonio, you speak like a Roman, but your accent is Milanese. He leaned in. His eyes held curiosity. And something else. Antonio, you are fluent in 3 dialects. Who are you really? Elena hesitated too long. Her silence was the answer. Antonio smiled, a cruel, beautiful gesture. Antonio, the girl who carries the secrets. He reached out. He gently took the glass shard from her hand. His fingers brushed hers. A subtle jolt. Elena pulled her hand back quickly. She felt heat rising. Antonio watched her reaction. A flicker of interest. Elena kept her gaze on Antonio. But her focus widened. Mario, the guard by the kitchen, was staring. Not at the boss. Not at her hands. He was staring past the wine racks. At the wall. He kept checking his wrist. No watch was there. He was counting seconds. Too precisely. Elena watched his reflection in the polished silver tray. He was nervous. Jittery. She realized Luca and Mario were also guarded. They were waiting for someone else. Not Antonio. A cold dread settled in her stomach. Elena spoke the first truth she allowed herself. Elena, the briefcase. It contained a ledger. Antonio's composure finally broke. Antonio, a ledger? Of what? Elena, a ledger of names. And payments. Antonio's eyes lit up with predatory hunger. Antonio, names I want. Payments I am owed. Elena, payments from men like you. To men like Marco. Antonio slammed his fist on the bar top. A sound like thunder. Antonio, Marco is a ghost. He died 10 years ago. Elena stared at him. Pure shock. Elena, no. That is impossible. I just spoke to him. Antonio laughed darkly. He knew something she didn't. Antonio moved around the bar. He stood beside her. His closeness was suffocating. His scent expensive. He lowered his voice. It became intimate. Antonio, you are courageous, Elena. He used her false name. A calculated move. Antonio, or maybe just reckless. Elena felt the conflict inside her. He was the enemy. Yet, his power was intoxicating. His knowledge compelling. Elena, I am a translator. I don't care about your ledger. Antonio touched her hair. A casual, possessive stroke. Antonio, of course you do. It involves your father's business. Elena flinched back. How did he know that? This was a new level of threat. Elena glanced at the dark window behind Antonio. The streetlights made the glass reflective. She saw a tiny flicker of light outside. High up. A brief, clinical flash. Not a car. It was too steady. Too specific. Like a camera lens. Or a sniper scope. She froze, her mind racing. Someone is watching Antonio. She was now caught between 2 enemies. She looked at Antonio. She had to warn him. But warning him meant trusting him. She could not afford trust. Not here. Antonio stepped away suddenly. He turned his back to her. He walked toward Luca. He spoke too low to hear. Luca leaned in to listen. Luca looked alarmed. Antonio glanced back at Elena. His expression hardened. He was back to being the boss. The killer. He pulled Luca closer. He spoke against his ear. Elena strained to listen. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She caught only fragments of the intense whisper. The words were sharp. Brutal. Antonio, whispering, the Chicago family. The girl is Lorenza's daughter. Luca's eyes widened in horror. Luca, whispering, but boss? Lorenza died 15 years ago. Antonio, whispering, she did. But the girl just called Marco, the man who killed her. Elena's blood ran cold. The truth hit her hard. Marco was the killer. The man she just spoke to. Antonio thought she was related to the victim. Antonio wheeled back toward her. His expression menacing. Antonio, is that correct? Are you Lorenza's daughter? Elena stayed silent. Her mind raced quickly. If she confirmed the connection, she was dead. If she denied it, he wouldn't believe her anyway. The scene flashes to a dark attic. 10 years ago. A woman's voice, harsh and urgent. Voice, hide this, Eliza. Never speak his name. Young Elena nodded, terrified. Her hands shook. She hid a small, carved wooden horse inside a loose floorboard. It was a gift from Marco. A twisted irony. Back to the present. Elena swallowed hard. Elena, I do not know who Lorenza is. Antonio scoffed. His eyes were unforgiving. Antonio, don't insult my intelligence. Antonio, your father was Angelo Rossi. Her cousin. Elena blinked. He had the wrong name. Her father was not Angelo Rossi. Her father was Marco. Marco had assumed the identity of the dead cousin. This was a massive revelation. A massive risk. She decided to play the role of the victim's relative. Elena, I know only that my father was killed. She let the pain show in her voice. A calculated move. Antonio leaned in, his scrutiny intense. Antonio, Rossi was killed for incompetence. Not honor. He paced slowly across the marble floor. Antonio, he was supposed to protect my family's interests. Antonio, he betrayed my father. He let us down hard. Elena realized Antonio was not just the boss. He was the son seeking retribution. The betrayal was deep. Antonio's face twisted with momentary, raw emotion. Antonio, my father never recovered from that loss. Antonio, he trusted the wrong men. The cost was everything. He looked suddenly tired. The mask slipped slightly. A quick flash of vulnerability. A human beneath the control. Elena saw the crack. A momentary weakness. Elena needed a distraction. She needed a weapon. Elena, what about the ledger? Where is it now? Antonio glared at her, pulling the mask back up. Antonio, that is my concern. Not yours. She used the moment to sweep the room again. She checked Luca, standing guard by the door. Luca was fidgeting. He kept glancing at the side window. Elena saw the problem. It was Mario. Mario was using his phone by the kitchen door. He kept his back to Antonio perfectly. Mario was typing fast. Sending a report. His movements were too careful. Too practiced. He was detailing everything. Her knowledge. His boss's reaction. Mario was the leak. The hidden reporter. Elena knew two people now observed her. Antonio watched her watching Mario. He didn't react. Antonio, you speak fluent, perfect Italian. Antonio, you understand the inner workings. Antonio, you know more than you pretend. He walked back to her. He made a sharp decision. Antonio, I need that ledger. You need protection. Antonio, find the briefcase for me. I guarantee your safety. Elena stared at him. He offered a devil's bargain. Elena, your protection is worth nothing in Chicago. Antonio, this is Milan. My word is law here. Elena, and if I say no? Antonio smiled, cold and humorless. Antonio, then Luca will drive you to the airport. He paused for dramatic effect. Antonio, not to catch a plane. To meet the tarmac. The tension was suffocating. Elena felt a pull. It was not love. It was the thrill of the danger. He recognized her skill. He valued her mind. Antonio, you have your father's eyes. Smart. Untrusting. Elena felt a blush creep up her neck. She hated it. Elena, I trust no one. Especially men like you. Antonio stepped close enough to feel his warmth. Antonio, Then you are smart, indeed. Now, the ledger. He needed her help. That gave her power. Elena, I need to know Marco's location. Antonio, he is moving. The call gave me a trace. Antonio, but I need the coordinates in the ledger. Elena, the briefcase is gone. That is why Marco called me. Antonio, then find the thief. Elena agreed, her eyes burning with resolve. Elena, give me 24 hours. Antonio looked satisfied. He snapped his fingers. Luca immediately opened the main door. The lock clicked. Antonio, go. But I have eyes everywhere. Antonio, don't disappoint me, little bird. Elena walked past him. She grabbed her plain coat. She felt his eyes burning into her back. She reached the front door. She pulled it open. She was free. For now. As she stepped outside, she heard Antonio speaking. Antonio, low voice, the wooden horse. Check her belongings for it. Elena stopped dead in her tracks. The wooden horse. The childhood secret. Only Marco and she knew about the horse. How did Antonio know that tiny, private detail? He had somehow penetrated her deepest memory. He knew too much. She spun around, ready to challenge him. But Antonio was already gone from the dining room. She looked down. Something was on the coat hook. It was a small, velvet-covered box. She snatched it up quickly. Her heart pounded harder. She opened the box rapidly with trembling fingers. Inside, nestled on the satin, was a delicate, gold-plated key. It was the key to his private study. His personal space. Antonio left her a key. And a lethal order. Why? Elena stared at the golden key. It felt heavy. The key meant trust. Or a lethal trap. She slipped it into her pocket. She had to use it. She walked swiftly away from the restaurant. Luca stood outside. A silent, huge shadow. Luca, where are you going? His voice was flat. Elena, to find the thief. As instructed. Luca, boss wants you close. I'm driving. Elena knew this meant she was a high-value prisoner. She got into the sleek black sedan. Luca drove fast. Elena decided to start the game immediately. Elena, does Antonio know about the outside observers? Luca didn't look at her. His face was blank. Luca, he knows everything. He is Antonio. Elena, he is being watched. A camera high up. She watched Luca's reaction in the side mirror. Luca's hands tightened on the wheel. Slight hesitation. Luca, prove it. Elena, Mario kept checking his empty wrist. Elena, he was timing an uplink. A data transfer. Luca took a sharp turn. He looked impressed. Luca, smart girl. Too smart. He immediately grabbed his own phone. He typed a quick alert. Elena had given Antonio a warning via his bodyguard. She was now a reluctant protector. Luca drove straight back to the restaurant. Antonio was waiting inside the service hall. He saw Elena immediately. His eyes were questioning. Antonio, report. Elena, Mario is a spy. He is reporting your movements. Antonio already knew this. He just wanted her confirmation. Antonio, who does he work for? Elena, the men who are watching you from the rooftops. Antonio nodded. His face remained calm. He called out sharply. Mario stepped into the light. Mario was pale. He knew he was compromised. Antonio did not yell. He was terrifyingly quiet. Antonio, show me the last message, Mario. Mario shook his head. His resistance was futile. Elena stepped forward. She saw Mario's phone nearby. Elena, he deleted it. But the cache remains. She quickly typed a command into Mario's phone screen. She accessed the hidden system log. Antonio watched, fascinated by her speed. The screen displayed a contact name, L.A. Zana. The Fang. This was the rival faction. The revelation was immediate. Antonio looked at the name. His lips twitched slightly. Antonio, La Zana. They are getting bold. Elena tossed the phone onto the floor. Elena, he was reporting your Barolo mistake, too. She said it with a challenging lift of her chin. Antonio's eyes narrowed, ready to punish. Then, unexpectedly, Antonio laughed. It was a deep, genuine sound. Pure surprise. He ran a hand over his face, still amused. Antonio, you have a dangerous mouth, Eliza. He used her false identity again. A reminder of control. Elena felt a flicker of triumph. She made the lion laugh. Antonio turned to Mario. The humor vanished instantly. Antonio, Luca. Deal with him. Luca approached Mario slowly. No words were needed. Mario let out a small whimper of fear. Antonio watched Mario being dragged away. Unfeeling. Antonio, La Zanna wants the ledger. They want Marco. Antonio, they think you are the daughter of their enemy. Elena, I am. But I'm also the daughter of Marco. The silence in the room screamed the implication. Antonio stared at her, absorbing the shock. Antonio, Marco is your father? The killer. Elena, he is protecting me. From the truth. She was now caught between two powerful lies. Antonio's look softened slightly. A momentary connection. Antonio, Marco lied to you about everything, then. Elena, only to keep me alive. He used the name Rossi. Antonio, your father, the killer, is still loyal to you. This complicated everything for Antonio. Antonio stepped toward her. Too close. He reached out. He lifted her chin gently. Antonio, you have spent your life in the shadows. Antonio, you speak the truth like a weapon. Elena felt the charge between them. Electric. She wanted to pull away. But she stood her ground. Elena, you need the ledger. I need my freedom. Antonio, I could take the information from you. His eyes dropped to her lips. A near-physical encounter. Elena swallowed. She fought the involuntary response. Elena, you could. But you won't. You need me whole. He released her chin. A slow, agonizing withdrawal. He respected her defiance. This intrigued him more. Antonio, the key is a test. Prove your loyalty. Antonio, go to my study. Bring me the black file. Elena nodded sharply. She was ready for the test. Elena walked toward the private lift. She inserted the key. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Just as she stepped inside, a siren wailed outside. Not a police siren. A loud, high-pitched alarm. Antonio cursed violently in Italian. Antonio, La Zanna. They found us too fast. Luca shouted from the door. Luca, boss. Backup is blocked. A blinding flash of light erupted from the street. Followed instantly by the shattering of the massive front window. The sound was deafening. Glass exploded everywhere. Shards flew like shrapnel. A sudden, violent attack. Antonio shielded his face instantly. Elena instinctively grabbed Antonio's arm. She dragged him into the open elevator. She slammed the close button hard. The lift was ascending rapidly. A hail of automatic gunfire hammered the restaurant's metal shutters. A single bullet pierced the lift's casing. It slammed into the wall, inches from Elena's head. Antonio looked at her, stunned by her protective action. Elena looked back at him, her eyes fierce. Elena, you have the black file. I need the key to the roof. Antonio just stayed, speechless. She was trapped with the man who owned the city. And they were under fire. Together. The elevator rocketed upward. Gunfire echoed below. Elena yanked Antonio closer to the back wall. The single bullet hole was smoking faintly. Antonio still looked shocked. His arm was bleeding slightly. Antonio, that was close. You saved my life. Elena, we are not safe yet. Where is the roof key? Antonio reached into his inner pocket quickly. He pulled out a heavy silver key card. He handed it over. Antonio, my penthouse is 2 floors up. The study is there. Antonio, the key card opens the roof access too. They reached the penthouse floor with a loud whoosh. The doors opened into a silent, vast living space. The silence was a chilling contrast to the chaos below. Elena saw the security monitors. The ambush was still active. She shoved the silver key into the roof access door lock. Antonio pressed his hand against his arm wound. The blood stain was spreading on his crisp white shirt. Antonio, the attackers are Larzana. They want me dead. Elena, and they think I lead them to the ledger. Elena, they saw me enter your car. I am collateral now. Antonio, we have the same enemy. We need an exit plan. He looked at her, truly trusting her for the first time. Antonio, where can we go? Where are you safe? Elena hesitated. She had nowhere safe left. Elena, the warehouse district. Nobody looks there. Antonio nodded immediately. He accepted her suggestion. Antonio, Luca is waiting 2 blocks west. We move fast. Elena grabbed a clean silk tie from a nearby drawer. She ripped it in half instantly. Elena, hold still. I'll stop the bleeding. She tied the silk tightly around Antonio's arm. Her hands were steady. She worked with precision. Antonio watched her face. His defenses were down. Antonio, you are not just a waitress, Eliza. Elena, I am trained. I know how to survive anything. Antonio, who trained you for this kind of escape? Elena, my father. Marco taught me evasion tactics. Antonio looked away. A flash of regret crossed his face. Antonio, he was a good soldier. A terrible father. Elena saw the pain in his eyes. A recognition of loss. He was vulnerable. He was bleeding. He was human. She finished the makeshift bandage quickly. Antonio stood up. He moved to the wide panoramic window. He looked down at the street. The fighting was intense. Antonio, how did Larzana find us so fast? Antonio, only 4 men knew my location tonight. Elena spoke quickly, her voice low. Elena, Mario was just a pawn. Someone gave him the tip. Elena, someone close to you. Someone with high access. Antonio turned, his eyes piercing. Antonio, Luca has been with me for 20 years. Elena, then it is the 4th man. The silent partner. Antonio rubbed his temple. The headache was clear. Antonio, Salvatore. He controls the logistics. He spoke Salvatore's name with deep doubt. Antonio, he knows my schedule. He knows the routines. Elena, the leak is in the high ranks. Trust no one. Elena quickly checked the roof access door. It was open. She saw a clear path to the next building's roof. Elena, we jump the gap. The roof is our only way out. Antonio stared at the distance. It was a 9-foot leap. Antonio, my arm is shot. I will slow you down. Elena, I will go first. I will secure the landing. She didn't ask for permission. She moved to the edge. She looked down. The dizzying height was terrifying. She took 3 quick steps and leaped across the void. She landed hard on the opposite roof edge. She rolled. She stood up instantly. She waved Antonio forward. Antonio ran and jumped without hesitation. He landed hard beside her. He grit his teeth in pain. Antonio, impressive. You are remarkably fast. Elena, survival is the fastest motivator. They raced across the rooftops, dodging equipment. They finally reached the fire escape. They climbed down fast. Antonio paused halfway. He checked his phone. Antonio, Luca is waiting below. We are clear. He looked at Elena, his expression unreadable. Antonio, why are you helping me, the enemy? Elena, Marco is my father. He is the killer. Elena, but you are the key to finding the real ledger. She pulled the golden key from her pocket. Elena, I used this key to escape the restaurant. Antonio frowned. Antonio, that is the study key. He realized her quick thinking had been strategic. Elena noticed a tiny, almost invisible etching on the key's bow. It was not decoration. It was a symbol. A small, stylized falcon. The same symbol Marco used. But this falcon was wearing a tiny crown. Antonio's eyes followed hers. He saw the symbol. He went rigid. Pure panic crossed his face. Antonio, where did you get that key? Elena held the key up to the faint light. Elena, it was on your coat rack. You left it for me. Antonio snatched the key violently. His hand trembled. Antonio, This key, it belongs to my mother. He stared at the falcon symbol. He spoke the terrible truth. Antonio, the crowned falcon. It is the crest of the Don's first wife. He looked at Elena, shock giving way to absolute dread. Antonio, my father gave that key to Lorenza before he died. Antonio, it means the ledger is not just money. Antonio, it is my family's founding secret. He threw his head back, his voice ragged with disbelief. Antonio, the only other copy of this key was stolen years ago. He looked at her, his enemy, his savior, with dawning horror. Antonio, who are you, really? What is your full name? Elena realized the finality of the revelation. Elena, my name is not Eliza Rossi. It is Elena Marco. She looked him straight in the eye. A final punch of truth. Elena, Marco's real name is Giovanni Bellandi. Antonio stumbled back against the railing. His own name. The truth exploded between them. Marco was his brother. Antonio stumbled, clutching his freshly bandaged arm. Antonio, Giovanni. My older brother. He is Marco. Elena nodded once. Her face was set in stone. Elena, Marco is Giovanni Bellandi. He never died. Elena, he went into exile. He became a ghost. Antonio gripped the rail hard. This changed everything. Antonio, why call me? Why expose yourself now? Elena, the ledger contains the real secret. Elena, it reveals who ordered the assassination of our mother. Antonio froze. Our mother. The word hung heavy. He was suddenly filled with raw, blinding fury. Antonio, the assassins were La Zanna. Everyone knows that. Elena shook her head slowly. Her eyes were piercing. Elena, the men who pulled the trigger were La Zanna. Elena, the man who paid them was far closer to home. Antonio glared at her, his mind reeling from the familial shock. Antonio, and you? You're helping the killer of my father's right-hand man. Elena, Marco, Giovanni, killed Angelo Rossi, the fake cousin. Elena, he killed him because Rossi planned to sell the empire. She stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Elena, I was sent to retrieve the ledger first. Antonio's eyes narrowed. He searched her face for the lie. Antonio, sent by whom? Marco. Elena shook her head again. A slow, definitive denial. Elena, I am a contracted agent. I work for the federal prosecutor. Antonio gaped. The realization hit him like a physical blow. She was not a family pawn. She was the law. Elena, I am not here for revenge. I am here for evidence. Antonio, the feds? You are wearing a wire. He moved to grab her. Elena anticipated the move. She stepped back fast, pulling out a burner phone. Elena, no wire. Just information. I am an asset. Antonio felt a wave of betrayal. He was furious. Antonio, you lied. You played me for a fool. Elena, I lied to survive. You would have killed me instantly. Antonio, you risked your life to save me back there. Elena, I needed you alive. You lead me to the ledger. But the conviction in her eyes wavered slightly. He saw the conflicted truth buried under the mission. Antonio, I saw the fear in your eyes, agent. Antonio, I saw the concern when I bled. That wasn't an act. Elena looked away, unable to deny the shared moment. Antonio's voice softened slightly, laced with obsession. Antonio, you risked prison to save the man you were supposed to arrest. Antonio, that makes you a beautiful problem, Elena. His calculated control was slipping. She was under his skin. A rapid series of gunshots echoed from the street below. Luca's voice crackled on Antonio's earpiece. Luca, OS boss. La Zanna is using heavy explosives. Luca, OS, they are targeting the building's infrastructure. Antonio looked at Elena. They were trapped again. Antonio, La Zanna is desperate. They know we have the key. Elena, they are trying to collapse the building on you. Antonio, we go through the wall. Now. Give me your phone. Elena handed him the burner phone. Antonio smashed the phone against the brick wall. Antonio, your handlers cannot track you now. Antonio, for the next hour, you work for me, Balandi. He grabbed a crowbar from a rooftop utility box. He began prying open a sealed utility hatch. Elena saw the pain in his movements. His injury was slowing him. Elena, your arm is too weak. Let me do this. Antonio stepped aside, gritting his teeth. His control was failing. He needed her strength. He hated needing her. Elena wrenched the hatch open. They dropped into a dark service tunnel. They crawled through the cramped, dust-filled tunnel. Antonio spoke into his earpiece again. Antonio, Luca. Pull back. Retreat to the docks. Antonio, do you understand the order? Retreat. Luca's voice was distorted by the tunnel's concrete. Luca, as boss. I cannot leave the front exposed. Luca, as Salvatore is ordering me to hold the line. Antonio froze instantly. He looked at Elena. He had just confirmed her suspicion. The betrayal was real. Antonio, Salvatore? He is giving commands now. Luca, as he says you are compromised. He is taking control. Antonio ripped the earpiece out. His rage was cold and focused. Antonio, Salvatore. The silent partner. The leak. Antonio, he is using Larzana to take over my empire. Elena, he knew you were injured. This was his chance. Elena, he wants the ledger, too. The mother's secret. They exited the tunnel into a deserted subway construction site. Antonio looked around quickly. They were temporarily safe. Antonio, why did my father give my mother the key? Antonio, what is the key to? What is the family secret? Elena leaned against a concrete pillar, exhausted. Elena, the key is to a safe deposit box. Elena, the box contains a will. Antonio frowned. Antonio, a will? My father is alive. Elena, the will is signed by your grandfather. Elena, it states that if the mother's killer is ever revealed. Elena, the entire Balandi empire, the property, the banks, the power. She paused, letting the shocking weight settle. Antonio waited, frozen in suspense. Elena, it all goes to Marco. Antonio went pale. Marco, the ghost, his exiled brother. Antonio, my grandfather cut my father out completely. Elena, he protected his first wife's honor. He punished his son. Elena, the ledger is not about money. It is the evidence of murder. Antonio's breath hitched. His world was shattering. Elena reached into her jacket pocket. She pulled out a small, encrypted USB drive. Elena, I didn't tell you the most important thing. Elena, I already have the ledger. I downloaded it from the black file. Antonio stared at the drive. The power in her hand. Antonio, the black file? The one I sent you to get. Elena nodded. Her eyes were sharp and challenging. Elena, it's not just the names of the assassins, Antonio. Elena, the file contains the full financial transfer. She looked up at him, delivering the final, crushing blow. Elena, the order to pay Larzana for our mother's death was signed by your father. Antonio lunged forward, his good hand reaching for her throat. Antonio, lies. You are lying. Elena held the USB drive out of his reach, defiant. Elena, I am not. And now I have the evidence to topple everything. Antonio's hand shot out. He was aiming for the USB drive. Elena was faster. She sidestepped his lunge easily. She held the encrypted stick high above her head. Elena, do not touch this. It is your destruction. Antonio stopped, breathing heavily. His arm throbbed. Antonio, that is my family's destruction, agent. Antonio, give it to me now, or I will take it back. Elena looked him dead in the eye. Her power was absolute. Elena, you need this data decrypted. You cannot read it. Elena, I am the only one who can confirm the signature. Antonio took a slow, calculated step back. He needed the information more than he needed revenge. Antonio, fine. The file is mine. The key is yours. Antonio, what are your demands, prosecutor? Elena lowered the USB drive slowly. Elena, we find Marco Giovanni. He deserves the truth. Elena, we expose Salvatore's betrayal immediately. Antonio, Salvatore controls too many men. That is suicide. Elena, he thinks he has already won the empire. Elena, we use that arrogance. We strike before morning. Antonio considered her plan. It was reckless. It was brilliant. Antonio, you give me the location of the ledger access. Elena, I give you the decryption key first. Antonio smiled, sharp and cold. Antonio, the audacity. He knew she was testing him. Testing his limits. He found a discarded tool bag nearby. He grabbed a wrench. Antonio, we are moving out. This site is compromised. They moved quickly through the construction zone darkness. Antonio was still relying on his old routines. Antonio, Luca is meeting us at Pier 4. It is secure. Elena scoffed softly. Elena, secure? Nothing is secure now. Elena, Salvatore had access to your schedule. Elena, he knows Pier 4 is your emergency fallback. Antonio paused. He realized his fatal flaw. Antonio, you think he compromised Luca? Elena, he compromised the routine. Luca is predictable. Elena, we go to Pier 8. No one uses that one. Antonio stared at her. Her strategy was flawless. She was dismantling his entire security apparatus. Antonio, you move like a soldier, think like a don. Antonio, what else did Marco teach you, Elena? Elena, survival means rewriting the rules constantly. She was dictating the route. The power had shifted completely. They reached Pier 8. The air was cold and salty. Luca's black sedan was parked discreetly under a crane. Luca stepped out. He looked relieved but exhausted. Luca, boss. I lost them at the bridge. Who did this? Antonio, Salvatore. He is making a power play. Antonio, we go to the safe house now. Move. Elena's heart hammered. She hated the safe house idea. It was too isolated. Too close. Antonio grabbed her hand quickly. He pulled her toward the car. His touch was firm. Protective. Possessive. Elena felt the danger and the thrill collide. She was a federal agent. He was the head of the Mafia. And they were holding hands under a street lamp. Antonio looked down at her. His eyes were intense. Antonio, you smell like gunpowder and expensive lies. Elena leaned in, challenging his proximity. Elena, and you smell like old Barolo and betrayal. Their faces were inches apart. A moment of intense vulnerability. He hesitated. The moment stretched, full of electric silence. He slowly lowered his head. He was going to kiss her. Luca cleared his throat loudly. A necessary interruption. Antonio pulled away instantly, his control snapping back into place. Antonio, drive, Luca. Fast. They sped away from the docks. Elena sat in the back. She was analyzing every flicker of Luca's behavior. Luca drove too smoothly. Too relaxed for a man ambushed. Elena, Luca. Did you secure the restaurant safe? Luca spoke without turning his head. Luca, yes, boss. Everything is locked down. Elena, did you use the triple code sequence? Luca hesitated. A tiny, almost invisible delay. Luca, the standard sequence. It was enough. Elena spoke sharply. Elena, that is a lie, Luca. Elena, the boss changed the code 2 weeks ago. Elena, the triple sequence is mandatory for external threats. Antonio's eyes went to Luca's face in the mirror. Antonio, is this true, Luca? Did you forget the sequence? Luca stammered. His loyalty was fractured. Luca, boss, I thought we were compromised already. Antonio realized the truth. Luca was still loyal. But Luca had told Salvatore the old sequence. Luca was protecting himself from Salvatore's wrath. Antonio's voice was dangerously calm. Antonio, the safe is now empty. Antonio, Salvatore has already taken the cash flow. Luca flinched hard. He was caught between two masters. Antonio, you didn't betray me, Luca. You simply feared Salvatore more. The alliance was broken. Antonio was truly alone now. Except for Elena, the agent holding the evidence. They arrived at the secure underground bunker. It was deep, silent, and entirely concrete. Antonio locked the heavy steel door behind them. Antonio, we are safe here. Now, the decryption. Elena pulled out the USB drive. She inserted it into an old laptop. She began typing the complex code sequence. Antonio leaned over her shoulder, watching the screen. Antonio, the evidence. Show me the proof of my father's signature. Elena decrypted the file rapidly. The ledger opened. It contained financial transfers, dates, amounts, and at the bottom, the digital signature. Vittorio Bellandi. Antonio stared at his father's name. The confirmation was brutal. Antonio, it is true. He killed his own mother. Elena watched his face crumble. His cold control gone. Elena moved the cursor down the document rapidly. Antonio grabbed her wrist. Antonio, what is this? Stop. He pointed at a single line item, heavily redacted. It was a record of a secret payment made 18 years ago. A massive wire transfer to a small, private charity fund. The payment was made 4 months after the murder. Antonio, why is this here? What charity? Elena looked at the line. Her face went utterly blank. She tried to close the file. Antonio blocked her. Antonio, tell me, agent. What is that charity? Elena swallowed hard. Her voice was a terrified whisper. Elena, it is the fund that paid for my adoption. Antonio stared at the name of the recipient, Elena Marco. Antonio, your adoption? Why did my father pay for your adoption? Elena's biggest secret spilled out in a single, desperate breath. Elena, because Marco, Giovanni, is not just my father. Elena, he is my uncle. And my real father. She pointed a shaking finger at the signature on the wire transfer. Elena, my real father is the man who signed the murder order. Vittorio Bellandi. She was Antonio's sister, the daughter of the Don, and the federal agent sent to destroy the family. Antonio staggered back, hitting the concrete wall. Antonio, my sister? Vittorio's daughter. Antonio, that is a lie. My father had only one child. Elena, he hid me. He paid Marco, Giovanni, to take me. Elena, Marco raised me as his own. To protect me. She pointed at the signature again. Elena, the money was hush money. And payment for loyalty. Elena, Vittorio hid me from the Empire. And from you. Antonio looked like he might collapse. The betrayal was absolute. Antonio, my brother raised my sister to be a weapon. Antonio, and you came back to bury us all. He lunged for the laptop screen again. Before he reached it, the heavy steel door shuddered violently. A grinding, metallic shriek cut through the silence. Luca's voice, strained and muffled, shouted from outside. Luca, OS boss. It's Salvatore. He found us. Luca, OS he used the old emergency beacon frequency. Antonio roared in frustration. The tunnel was compromised. Antonio, Salvatore is here. He wants the ledger and the will. Elena quickly ripped the USB drive from the laptop. Elena, we use the data as bait. We need to lure him inside. Antonio, and then what, Agent Bellandi? Antonio, we are trapped. You played your hand too soon. Elena quickly scanned the concrete bunker walls. She saw the main ventilation shaft. Too small for Antonio. Elena, you need a distraction. I need 5 minutes. Antonio, I am not letting you run back to the feds. Elena stepped close to him, her voice urgent and low. Elena, I am not running to the feds. I am protecting the family. Elena, if Salvatore gets this, he destroys everything. Antonio looked at her, his obsession wrestling with reason. He saw the genuine conviction in her eyes. The shed blood. Antonio, if you leave, I have no reason not to kill Salvatore. Antonio, he will die a long, painful death for this betrayal. Elena, Don't let rage take over. That is what Vittorio did. Elena, we need the truth to survive. Not another murder. Antonio closed his eyes briefly. He chose reason. Bailey. Antonio, give me the flash drive. I will be the bait. Elena shook her head firmly. Elena, no. You are the leverage. Elena, I am going up the vent. I will trigger the internal alarm. The door began to buckle inward, metal tearing loudly. Antonio grabbed a fire extinguisher. His only weapon. Antonio, go. Now. But if you run, I swear I will hunt you down. Elena didn't hesitate. She scrambled up onto the workbench. She squeezed into the small, dark ventilation shaft. She crawled fast, the concrete rough against her skin. Antonio stood by the collapsing door, ready for the ambush. The door finally burst inward with a crash of metal. Salvatore stood there, flanked by 2 armed men. Salvatore smiled, cold and triumphant. Salvatore, hello, Antonio. Where is the little translator? Antonio, calmly, she is gone. She has the ledger. Salvatore laughed. Salvatore, lies. Luca said she was here. Salvatore, he said she was trying to decrypt the file. Antonio realized Luca's final, honest mistake. Antonio used the momentary lapse in concentration. He aimed the fire extinguisher at Salvatore's face. He pulled the trigger hard. A blinding cloud of chemical foam exploded. The room filled instantly with white haze and coughing. Antonio dove toward the back wall, firing his small pistol blindly. He shouted to create confusion. Antonio, she's here. She's behind you. Meanwhile, Elena crawled through the narrow vent rapidly. She reached the control room access point. She quietly opened the vent cover. She dropped inside. The room was filled with old computer terminals. She immediately located the main internal security panel. She typed a command quickly into the system override. The entire bunker facility suddenly went into lockdown. All emergency lights flashed red. Sirens blared deafeningly. Salvatore and his men stopped fighting, disoriented. Salvatore, what is this? Who triggered the lockdown? Elena stepped back slowly, putting distance between them. Elena, the feds never hired me. I am not a prosecutor. Elena, I am an investigative journalist. Antonio went white. The final, fatal revelation. Antonio, a writer? The viral scriptwriter. Elena smiled, a slow, terrifying, triumphant smile. Elena, I am writing a book. The story of the fall of the Balandi Empire. Elena, I needed a hostile takeover. I needed a confession. Elena, and I needed the entire story from the inside. She tapped her temple lightly. Elena, every word, every fight, every detail. Elena, it is all recorded. In real time. Antonio lunged for her, finally understanding the true betrayal. Antonio, you filmed this? Where is the camera? Elena was already scrambling back up the open ventilation shaft. Elena, it is in the one place you never searched, Antonio. Elena, the small, wooden horse Marco gave me years ago. Antonio stared up at the empty ventilation hole. He realized the carving was hollow. The camera inside. He had exposed his entire life, his trauma, his empire, to the world. Elena's voice echoed down the concrete shaft, cold and final. Elena, OS goodbye, Antonio. Chapter 9 is complete. The story was over. And she had won everything. Antonio stared at the empty hole. The laughter was gone. The silence felt colder than the concrete walls. He had been played from the first phone call. Salvatore whimpered on the floor. Salvatore, boss, I knew nothing. Antonio looked down at the traitor with absolute indifference. Antonio, get up, Salvatore. You have work to do. Antonio, you now run logistics for the most anticipated book launch in history. Antonio grabbed the recording device, Salvatore's phone. He smashed it against the wall, destroying the confession. The empire was compromised. But the empire would survive. Antonio sat heavily on the ground. His posture was broken. His calculated control was replaced by cold, clear acceptance. He wasn't angry at Elena. He was impressed. She had exploited his deepest vulnerability, his family. She knew the only way to get the truth was to make him care. He accepted the truth about his father's treachery. Antonio, Luca. Get down here now. Bring a heavy bolt cutter. Luca's voice crackled through the comms. Luca, OS boss? What happened? Antonio, the sister one. Now we fix the damage. He had been transformed from a mob boss to a survivor. His obsession shifted, from controlling Elena to controlling the narrative. Elena crawled through the final meters of the ventilation shaft. She emerged into a deserted alleyway behind the construction site. She dropped silently to the ground. She was free. The wooden horse, small and heavy, was clutched in her hand. She ran fast, not looking back at the compound. She found a secure server terminal nearby. She quickly uploaded the encrypted data stream. The raw footage, the confessions, the ledger details. Her contract was fulfilled. Her story was complete. She pulled out her personal burner phone. She dialed a number. Voice, OS, it's done. Elena, it's done. The entire story. The truth about the mother. Elena, Vittorio is exposed. Antonio is contained. Voice, OS returned to Rome. You have a massive book deal. Elena hung up the phone. She felt relief. But also a strange emptiness. She looked at the wooden horse. The camera within was still recording. She knew the deal was done. But the connection remained. Luca arrived at the bunker. He stared at the destruction. Antonio pointed at the broken vault. Antonio, Salvatore will handle the logistics cleanup. Antonio, you handle the narrative. Leak a controlled version of the fire. Antonio smiled, the cold predator returning. Antonio, I am now running the new Bellandi empire. Antonio, built on secrecy and family ties. However messy. He stood up. He walked to the main steel door. Antonio, we are not enemies, Luca. We are the new alliance. Antonio, she gave me the truth. Now I will use it to rule. He looked at Salvatore, who was nursing a bruise. Antonio, get ready, Salvatore. We have a journalist to partner with. Antonio, if she wants the exclusive, she needs an insider. He was accepting the uneasy partnership. He knew she would return. Not for him, but for the story. Elena reached the train station. She bought a ticket south. She sat on the platform bench, waiting for the first train. She looked at the wooden horse in her hand. She opened the tiny, almost invisible screw. She removed the recording lens and the tiny memory card. She placed the lens in her purse. The card was safe. She stood up as the train hissed to a stop. Just then, a text message arrived on her burner phone. The number was blocked. The message was short. Text message. The advance is already transferred. But you forgot one thing. Elena frowned. She checked her bank account. The full payment was there. She checked the transaction details quickly. The payment came not from her book agent. It came directly from a holding company in Milan. The company name was Bellandi Media Group. Antonio's voice message followed instantly. Antonio, OS, low and controlled, you want to write a bestseller, Sorella. Antonio, OS, you need exclusive access to Chapter 11. Antonio, OS, the Empire will provide all the access you need. Antonio, OS, but you must meet me in Rome. Tomorrow. Elena looked up from the phone. Her final escape was halted. She looked down the dark, empty train track leading north to Milan. A faint, predatory smile touched her lips. She pressed delete on the ticket. She was walking straight into the sequel. The story was far from over.